And now this is a big, big one. This is the one that a horse is different than us, but we have to think about it. It just clicked, one thing just clicked with me the other day. So this muscle is the serratus anterior. If you watch boxing or something, you see these muscles on the side, they're like sticking out. It's that, because the boxers punch. And that muscle holds the shoulder blades into the chest. So if you're punching and that thing just goes like all the way back, you're not forceful. So in boxers, those muscles are very, very strong. So they're attaching at the anterior side of the medial border of the scapula, right in here. This scapula is flipped back, so you can see it.
Okay.
And then it moves onto the ribs. It's underneath. It moves onto the ribs. And so it goes in all the way down to about, what is that, rib 8. So it protracts and holds the scapula against the chest. It's very important. And this muscle, like in a horse, in a four-legged creature, holds that shoulder down and makes sure that the thing is not just hanging down, the chest is not just hanging down. But we stood up at some point. And so now we don't have this push, so what does it do? It's hanging down. So this muscle is kind of weird. A lot of times this muscle is not quite active. It's not quite functioning. And it's one that when we injure a rib, let's say you pull something, you yank it out like that, and you got a rib here that's pushed out a little bit, that's just sprained a little bit. And you can push it back in and it helps. But these muscles here, they become issue laden, they become weaker, they don't activate as much when this stuff hurts down here. And then the patient goes, we work them and then they go back out and they lift something heavy and it pulls back up. And that's when I say you want to have your elbow pushed into the wall, into the chest, into the side of your body. And then you lift. This is all of it being a unit. And then you actually stabilize that muscle. You hold it up and that contracts it and that actually builds that muscle up versus you're just hanging down. I know, it's a little weird. And it's difficult. People don't really work. This is hard. Working on the armpit, that's like, people are sensitive there, so you don't usually do it. So that's an important one to know. Push-ups, that type of stuff is good for that. And then we got a little cousin to it. It's the pectoralis minor. And the pec minor starts right here at the, remember the coracoid? That process here? So it's right at the coracoid process and goes into the ribs in the front. And it holds the shoulder blade down sort of this way down, the front downward. So it does that, it stabilizes it that way. So that's rib 3 to 5 in the front here, and then the coracoid of the scapula, and it depresses the scapula and rotates it down and pulls it forward. So it does this, it brings it forward if you need it to pull forward. Or it stabilizes it forward. That's the way to say it.
Is it underneath the pectoralis major?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Which we'll do next, because the pec major actually moves the arm around.
It's just
a big
all
one.
right here.
So that's another picture why I put that up, is because you've got this knob thing. That's often used to do your own trigger pulse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look, they sell them like S-shaped things, so you
Yeah,
can hook
with
it
the
and
balls
pull
at
on
the
it.
end of it.
It's good stuff. It's one of the good tools. It's like a tennis ball is also a good tool for certain things. And that brings me to the rotator cuff muscles. Okay, so we've covered muscles that attach the shoulder blade here, anchor it in here from this side. We covered one from underneath, and we also got a stabilizer in the front. So that's pretty good. It's a pretty good start. And we got the trapezius on top also. And now we've got to figure out who's going to hold this humerus into that glenoid cavity, into that shoulder blade. And we got 4 muscles. They all come from the shoulder blade, and they reach from 3 from behind. They reach onto the greater tubercle. That's why we got a greater tubercle. And they reach onto that, and they pull that in. 3 in the back. And we got 1 in the front that comes from the front down and pulls in the lesser tubercle and pulls it in that way. So that's pretty smart. We got basically now 4 muscles, 3 from the back and 1 from the front, that pull in that shoulder. That pull in that humerus and anchor it in. So let's go through it. The problem is they wear out before I go through it. They wear out because they always work. This is a very shallow joint. So besides movement, those muscles have serious postural helps that they need to do, holding that thing in. Especially the ones on top. The one on top is usually the one that tears. Because the one on top has to hold it in, and then it also has to move the arm this way until the one on top can take over. So it has a lot of work to do. It's a big one. And it's not well vascularized. There's a portion that doesn't have good blood supply. And that makes it even more prone.
I'm a side sleeper, and there are some days where I really think I'm killing my shoulders.
Yeah, you probably,
just
yeah.
by sleeping on them.
Well, and it's like, this motion, it's this thing that goes on and on, more and more, and we have to fight it a little bit. Because that's where, part of why this happens is because these wore out and they fall down there. Sometimes it's the side sleepy thing, a pillow under here, as sort of maybe a square thing, a foam thing. That helps to give this room a little bit. Because it's all, you lay it on this. If you can take some of that weight off, that helps. Well, food for thought. So let's go through them. We learned these bones, right? We learned that we have on the scapula, we have the spine of the scapula, we have the supraspinous fossa, we have an infraspinous fossa, and we got a subscapular fossa. We got muscles that fit those names. Perfect, huh? Easy learning, easy study. We got a supraspinatus, we got an infraspinatus, and we got a subscapularis. Same name.
I can't see where your hand is.
Underneath.
Yeah,
Under the
the other
scapula.
side.
Underneath the scapula is the subscapularis. Underneath the scapula. So the supraspinatus goes from the supraspinous fossa to the greater tubercle of the humerus, stabilizes the humerus. It also does this. It abducts the first 30 degrees or so. That's why that's one trick. If you can't do that, if you have to take your arm like here and then you can do it, you got a problem with that muscle. Or sometimes it just yanks it up. Because the thing is, the next muscle, the deltoid muscle, you can see the deltoid here real well. It goes, there it is. That's the back, that's the front. Spine of the scapula. The deltoid is the muscle that's around on the shoulder, the big one on top. So that one is nice. It anchors into the arm. It does this to the arm. It raises it up. It does this. Perfect for that. However, how it's arranged, it goes here and then it goes straight down and it anchors into the arm. The first few degrees, he can't do that. It will pull the arm in and up. But if you raise it up a little bit, then you got the leverage that you can pull on it. And so the first few degrees, the muscle up here has to do that, and that muscle, as you see here, it goes from the supraspinous fossa into underneath the acromion, on into the greater tubercle, and then it has a nice way of pulling. It has a nice way of pulling right here, so you can pull it up the first few degrees. I know, complicated stuff. But maybe that way it's not just a name, makes it a little more interesting, hopefully. So that's the supraspinous fossa. The infraspinous fossa is on the bottom of the spine of the scapula, and the infraspinous fossa. Going to the greater tubercle, holding that thing in. That doesn't do that arm lifting thing. However, that one is more involved. The supra is also involved a little, but that was much more involved in doing this. In rotating the humerus laterally. So if you think about it, it's attached here and goes into here, and if you bend your elbow and you do this, you pull on it, it brings the elbow out. Pulls up here. So when you have a problem with this, one of the exercises you can do is this. Take a rubber band, hold it here, and do this.
Oh, yeah.
Or put it in a chair, or go do both, yeah. Or even a weight. But that motion is what helps build that muscle up. And then we got a little small cousin underneath that has a weird name, and that I don't know why it means. It feels it's so important because it's got a small muscle with a big name, right? No, we don't. We have other things. Huh? That one?
Like a really painful.
This is a tough muscle. A lot of people have issues with that muscle. The teres minor?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, she has a big trigger point right here.
Oh,
But it basically, from our perspective right now, it helps the infraspinatus do its work. Teres minor. There's a bigger cousin. If it's a minor, you have a major. The bigger cousin is going to be here. We'll get to that in a little bit. That's a part of a different motion pattern, actually. And again, that also rotates the humerus laterally to the outside. The one that brings it medially to the inside is the muscle that's on the bottom. That's the inside of the scapula. You see the ribs are removed. No ribs. You would have ribs here. That's the coracoid process. That's in the front. And so underneath the shoulder blade, the scapula, it reaches from there and goes out to the lesser tubercle. And so when you bend the elbow here and you pull on this, it's going to be medially rotating that humerus. So that's the other motion. You could build muscle nicely by knowing what the motions are, and then just go with the range of motion on it. And if you want to be safe with building muscle, my philosophy is you use low weights, go slow, and don't go to the end range. Don't go, I can do a little more. Oh, it popped. Dang it. Oh, we don't want that, right? So we rather stay a little bit on the inside. That's okay. I mean, and if you want to do bodybuilding, then go somewhere else. But that's more stability and health building, the way I look at it, because avoiding injury is part of that thing. If you're a superhero and you can lift a lot, and then you injure yourself, but then you're out for 6 months, that doesn't help. Okay, so that's the rotator cuffs. Now we're going to go and move the shoulder, the arm around a little, right? So we've got a few muscles doing that. We got, the big one here, then we got these here, we know this one. We got some in the front, and guess what? We also got some in the back. I think the back picture is probably, we'll get to the back picture and we'll. So who's moving the humerus around? The pec major is a big one. The pec major comes from the ribs, down here, the sternum, and the clavicle. Look at that. Big fan-shaped muscle. And it goes right into the humerus. Right into that what's it called? Yeah, intertubercular groove. Remember, that's not only music, that's also an anatomy. The intertubercular groove. So it goes from here and reaches right into here. Powerful muscle. Long origin into one point here. That's very powerful. What does it do? It brings that arm in, adducts the arm. And it medially rotates the humerus as well. So when you do that, you also work that. Powerful muscle. Give you boob pain. You see that? Then, we got a small one that we don't really all know that much about in the regular world because it's underneath everything. It's the coracoid brachialis. So guess where that starts? In the coracoid? Right here. And then it goes to the shaft of the humerus. So that's just the shaft of the humerus. What does that do? It brings the humerus up. So that's one of those muscles that can lift that arm up. We like that. It's not that big of a muscle, but it has a bunch of helpers. So the big helper is the deltoid. That's the superficial one of those. The deltoid looks like if you cut it out and you bring it to the side, it's an inverted triangle. That's like a delta. That's why they call it that. It's the same insertion as it's the same origin as the trapezius insertion. Clavicle, wait, that's the back. Clavicle, acromion, the tip of the shoulder, and then the spine of the scapula, about a third each. And it anchors, so it's right here. It anchors into the deltoid tuberosity. That's the rough spot on your arm. You can feel that. You go down a little, there's a bump. If you poke real hard, it probably hurt a little bit. That's okay.
Right here.
Yeah, it's right there. So now you know what that muscle does because you know the attachment side. So you can take your fingers and you can go the span of the origin and insertion and say like, oh, let's see what happens when I take these fingers together.
Oh, I see.
Oh, look, I'm raising it up. Or I'm raising it to the side. Or I'm raising it back. So the main function is abduction, bringing the arm out. But we're also going to have flexion. We're going to have back, going back. Extension, hyperextension. We got all these motions with it. It's a big muscle.